Welcome to We Won't Finish This Podcast, where we pitch movies to each other that we'll never make. I'm Spaceman.
I'm Zeebz.
I'm Savage.
All right, why don't you tell them what you got for us tonight, Zeebz?
Well, I already have a title for my movie. This is part of our Halloween Double Feature Spooktacular. This movie is called ScareBNB.
I'm already 100% on board.
It's a story of a young family who rents an Airbnb on a lake in an attempt to get away from the stresses of their everyday lives.
Is this from a series of books from like Goosebumps or like Moose Bumps?
Well,
I think at this point, everyone's had a shady Airbnb experience at one point or another, right?
well, specifically, I know you told me about one. I don't know if you want to talk about that at all, but it was a pretty good story. We've got time.
Oh,
I would like to hear this.
I could delve into it, but basically, I was staying at a place, and it was like the last night that we were there. This lady that owned it, she like invited me to a little bonfire in the backyard, and things went down from there. It got kind of weird, and at the end of the day, we were like, okay, we got to get out of here, and that was definitely an oddball experience.
Basically, long story short, I remember you telling me that she essentially broke up with her boyfriend during your bonfire, and then you went inside, and it was like a duplex or something, and you could hear her friend just having loud phone sex with somebody, and you were just
bizarre.
like, Jesus Christ. Like,
Phone.
There's nowhere we can go.
Why is it over the phone somehow worse?
I don't know. Well, anyways, in our spooky tale we have for you today, like I said, this is a story of a young family who rents an Airbnb on a lake in an attempt to get away from the stresses of their everyday lives, only to discover they have walked into their worst nightmare, B&B.
Nightmare B&B.
Yeah.
All right.
So that's where we are here. Do you guys have any comments to get started, or are we just going to get into it?
So we have like an actual spooky story. Well, I don't know. Yeah, yours.
It's more traditional than
the previous
last
one was
episode,
a monster
It
movie.
was
Yeah,
a Jordan Peele movie, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So only one thing, I'm not big into the paranormal, but like I do remember my dad telling me one time that he used to. I mean, I don't even remember a ton of this, but it was he did some kind of like groundskeeping type thing where he had to go stay essentially at this little island. So it was already kind of like weird and secluded. But one night, I know when he was kind of doing his normal duties, he claims to have like seen like a ghost hand on like a doorknob, and I don't really remember much of the stories. We haven't talked about it.
You mean he saw the hand
years.
Grabbing the doorknob, or he saw a hand print, or what do you?
No, like a hand,
on?
like kind of like a ghost hand, like kind of going for a doorknob, and like I don't know if it was like there's anything else there. I just know there's a hand. Maybe the door was ajar and he saw like the hand. Like I don't know, but like I remember him specifically mentioning this. And now I'm going to have to ask him about it.
Spooky. Spooktacular. So anyways, we're going to get started with our story here. I have a couple in their mid-30s. We're going to call them Mark and Liz. This one I've got a whole cast of characters here.
Good.
Mark and Liz, they're looking through Airbnb listings and discussing how badly they are in need of a vacation. And they like everything that appears child-friendly. They have a young child, so they're like anything that's like, oh, she would love that, blah blah blah. So finally they find the perfect place. It's in their budget, it's right on the lake, has kids playground stuff in the yard. Most importantly, the photo of the beach area shows a lot of kids playing and swimming, which they love because any parent wants their kid to make friends, know.
Mm-hmm.
So it's looking good. We've all looked through the Airbnbs. It's fun, you're like, oh, that'd be cool. Oh, that'd be a cool little, imagine that.
Nice little trip.
Yeah. So at this point, they found a place. They call in their 10-year-old daughter, Annie, to come look at the pictures, and they tell her about the vacation, and everyone's very excited. Oh, look, there's a corn maze nearby we can do. So I was thinking what other scary settings would be appealing in your Airbnb, but in the setting of once it becomes a horror movie is a nightmare.
A scary hayride.
Yeah. Well, corn maze is good, but I was trying to think of like what other things would be like, ooh, they have one of these, but really it's a thing of nightmares once the sun goes down.
Yeah, I mean, like I just kind of picture some of
Like,
like the old staples from like
like a wax museum or something.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
yeah,
that'd be a good one.
the barn full of for some reason very sharp objects that you have to walk through and like keep moving them away from your face.
The Knife Museum.
Exactly. The museum of sickles.
Yeah. So, so they're all very excited about this. They got the corn maze, whatever. And I think it's very important to list that there's no Wi-Fi bad cell service.
Okay.
There's only a landline. Welcome to the horror movie.
Yeah,
Your phone,
because obviously.
Right.
you can't just call somebody.
Yeah, we got to really lean in. I
Yeah.
feel like we really got to lean into the
But
horror
hey,
movie tropes here.
You got to think if it's a family going on vacation, they're like, hey, that's fine. Let's get away from our phones. Let's read a book. Let's sit by the water. Like
we
so.
can
It's,
have a bonfire.
Even in the listing, like
Yeah.
signal spotty or whatever.
yeah, exactly. It's like it's almost
good with
appealing in this
Yeah.
kind of a this kind of a trip.
What do they call
So
it? Rustic.
Yeah, rustic remote living.
yeah, so I'm thinking there, from there we cut to the family getting ready for the trip. They're bustling to get everything loaded into the car. They're very stressed out, but they know that as soon as they get in the car, they are officially on vacation. We've all been there, right,
Oh,
fellas? We've all been there.
Yep.
Yep.
You put in that PTO. It's like it's approved. Like
Yeah.
Yep. You just silence the work stuff.
Yep.
It's all.
Yeah.
So yeah. It's,
So they're on the road, right? They're very relaxed. They're feeling good vibes. They're driving through like a very rural farm area, because the place they're going is kind of in the middle of nowhere, of course. And they're in great spirits. And then someone suggests, let's buy some farm fresh eggs. You always see those.
Uh-huh.
You know what I'm talking
Yeah,
about.
you see a little sign on the side.
You
of
see
the
a little
road.
sign, so they're like, let's go get some farm fresh eggs,
Yeah,
right?
some farm fresh eggs and
And
some
they-
sweet tomatoes.
They just can't find any, right? And they're just driving. They're like, where's the farm fresh eggs? And then finally, they're getting kind of close. They see a grocery store and they're like, look, we're in the middle of nowhere. We can't risk it. We got to just go get some eggs and stuff at the
Yeah.
grocery store. So they do that. And then as soon as they get out of the grocery store and keep driving, they're just seeing farm fresh eggs everywhere. This is based on a true story, people. This happened.
I feel like this is a disappointing, well, at least for your parents, like trip when you were
You
young.
can't get twice as many eggs.
Well, once you have eggs, it's very annoying to see all the farm fresh eggs. You're like, oh, now they're everywhere.
I could for some
North
reason,
of the grocery store.
I see the dad in this right so far, just seeing the farm fresh eggs after like probably second or third, he probably stops to get them. Like comes out and just like sets his like current eggs, the ones he
leaves
got
them.
just like under his tire, so he just runs them over on the way out of there.
Trades them.
Yeah.
Just eggs a house. So they arrive at the rental, and it appears as good as the photos. It's in the middle of nowhere, but it's on a lake, and the lake shore is pretty densely populated with cabins, docks, and boats. The parents make some Bloody Marys, and they sit on the deck watching Annie play. Everyone's pleased.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's going good. Yeah, this is the beginning of the horror movie.
Yeah, it's probably like a rocking chair on the porch. They're just kind of
Perfect.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, it's like this is going to be legit. We
Yeah,
got a
this
few
is
days
cool.
of this. She's having fun. We can just sit here. So Annie wants to go swimming. So they walk down to the water with her, and they see that it's not very easily accessible. It's a dangerous slope down with a bunch of goose froth washed up. Do you guys know what goose froth is?
No, that sounds gross.
It's terrible. It's basically things that wash up around the edges of lakes and rivers, and then
Okay, just that foamy kind of gross
yeah,
stuff.
exactly.
Okay,
And it
I
can
gotcha.
get you like the swimmer's itch, and like
Okay.
it's terrible. So this part's based on a true story. This happened. We rented an Airbnb, kid-friendly swim area. We went there and we're like, we have to walk through a pile of it was like hay with the foam around it, and I was like, I have to have my kids walk through this
Yeah,
to go swimming.
I
Like
feel like
this.
somebody left with ringworm after this.
Yeah.
So exactly. So they decide that they don't want Annie to have to do that. So Liz starts angrily messaging the Airbnb owner, Margaret, who's a woman about 60-ish years old. She has a picture on Airbnb. Looks like a business type woman, And she says, you advertise a child-friendly swim area, but this is not accessible. Margaret responds quickly that they had to remove the steps because boaters were docking there and swimming. Margaret says that she has messaged the neighbor, Kyle, in his mid-40s, who is very nice and has extra steps they can use for
I
the
don't
dock.
like Kyle already.
Well, buckle up. So almost immediately,
Kyle.
because this part's based on a true story. This also happened at the Airbnb. They had we couldn't get to the swim area, and we messaged them being like, "Do you have steps somewhere? Like this is crazy," because they had a dock right there.
Yeah.
And they were like, "Oh, the neighbor has steps you can borrow," and we went over there, and he had 2 sets of steps on his dock, and one of them was bolted on, the other one was not bolted on, almost like it's taken off all the time.
Yeah.
And we were like, that's weird. And then I met the guy and I was like, what if this lady doesn't even own the Airbnb and this guy owns it? And this is just like his way to like meet the renters under like, oh yeah, no problem, I helped you out. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of where I got inspired this idea. Is I was like, okay, what if it's not even this person?
Yeah, it's very specific context.
So you're
for
creating
the stairs.
the need for them to go to the neighbors.
Well, just
in the
so
first place, so
within the first couple hours, you're gonna have an excuse to not only meet them, but like kind of be their hero for the weekend. Thank you so much for letting us take the steps. You know, you just made this so much easier, and it's such a simple thing. You know,
They think I'm awesome.
well, the only reason I brought up the whole based on a true story thing is because like this is kind of a writer's room kind of podcast thing, and it's like this is literally what sparked the idea. Is I was like, what if something nefarious was going on with that guy? You know, but so anyways. Kyle's already out there taking the as soon as they look out the window, like, you know, on this when they get the message, he's already out there doing it. Let's see, she's messaged Kyle. He's very nice. He has extra steps he can use. Almost immediately, Kyle is walking out to his dock and grabbing the steps. Mark rushes out to help and thank him. They get chatting and kind of hit it off. Annie runs up, the young girl, and Kyle starts talking to her politely and asking if she likes, you know, do you like Barbies? Do you like princesses? You know, like he's just being like a nice guy. The whole thing's, it's all very wholesome. You know what I mean? Like he's a nice guy. He helped him out.
I don't like him.
He's good with the kid. Well,
give me weird vibes.
I don't like him. He's got
there.
a white van in his garage.
Well, we haven't gotten there.
No windows.
So
right, keep going.
after Annie starts swimming and the parents are settled, Kyle comes back out with kids' floaties and swimming toys, and he tells them they can use them. Mark and Liz thank him again for being so kind, and then when he leaves, Liz starts expressing suspicions. He doesn't have any kids, but he has all these toys. He has 2 sets of steps on his dock, and one wasn't even attached. Why isn't it over here? Mark brushes it off, and he's like, hey, if I had a place like this and the money that goes with it, I'm sure everybody would want to stay here, and they'd have kids, and, you know, I'd have all this stuff.
Yeah.
So Liz is just kind of like, okay, yeah, maybe you're right. So another little girl, Sophie, about Annie's age, runs up and asks if Annie wants to play. And Annie's like, yes, and they both start swimming. Behind her is a woman in her mid-40s, Judy, who walks up asking, you know, is it all right if they play? And they say, yeah, sure, you know, and Judy's very nice. She has a drink with Mark and Liz while the kids play. And she's like, hey, remember, Sophie, Annie's not a forever friend. And she's like, you know, hey, she just gets so sad when the kids leave. Because, like, you know, she lives next to this rental place.
Yeah,
you know?
That's a creepy thing to say, though.
I know, well,
yeah, not a forever friend. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. That's your first hint of, like,
Don't
what are we
get too
talking about
attached.
here? Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
So Judy tells them how Annie, their daughter, reminds her of her daughter. Sophie isn't her daughter, but actually her granddaughter. She's staying with them while Sophie's mother sorts out some personal problems.
All right.
So we're getting pretty creepy here, right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
already like, okay, what's going on here at the lake?
Most sensible people, like, at this point, are probably just like, it's not enough to leave, but it's close.
Well, you've been waiting for this vacation. Like,
Yeah.
it's like, I don't see these as people that like take a lot of vacations.
Okay. So they got this nice little vacation. They
it's
got their
not
farm fresh
exactly
eggs.
like flags going off, but it's definitely like, okay, that's strange. That's
Like,
strange.
I wish
that's
we didn't have
strange.
neighbors to even
That's
talk
strange.
to. I'd rather
Right.
be alone up here. Like, the
Yeah.
spot is great, but the neighbors are kind of bugging us,
Right.
you know?
Yeah, it's just a weird vibe. Like,
Yeah.
this guy just wants us to be stoked on him, as far as we can tell, which is kind of
Yeah.
weird. His name's
So-
Kyle.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So I didn't think long about the names. They're pretty generic names.
Yeah, I
but-
use
So-
placeholder names.
So I'm thinking at this point, like, everything's pretty chill and cool until Annie says, like, she's talking to the other girl, Sophie. She's like, oh, I'm going to go inside and run it and grab a toy. Sophie runs after her, and Judy starts yelling, like, hey, don't go in the house. Don't go in the house. Like, first calmly and then frighteningly, don't go in the house. You know?
Okay.
And then Judy runs over, grabs Sophie by the arm, marches her back to their house without saying anything. Both seem to, like, kind of be in tears. You know?
Okay.
So
it's
That was a
definitely
close
serious.
call.
Yeah.
yeah, like, this is our first, like, okay, this is, now she's crazy, you know?
Okay.
So Mark and Liz are both freaked out by this, and they decide, like, hey, it's getting late. We should get our swim stuff off, go inside, you know? And then they go inside their Airbnb, they're getting dressed, and they discover a plethora of board games and DVDs that Airbnbs sometimes have.
Yeah.
You guys ever find this?
Yeah, I mean, like, I haven't done Airbnb, but yes, I'm familiar.
I
Yeah.
usually have a few.
So,
Yeah, like Jenga, like, you know, Mousetrap, like all that kind of crap around.
well, it's great because the DVDs they're always DVDs. They're not Blu-rays.
Of course.
So it's somebody's old collection. It's
Yeah.
like things that were cool in the early 2000s. And the last one we went to, not saying this was cool in the early 2000s, but had the entire series of Golden Girls on DVD, as well as a Golden Girls trivia game.
Yeah.
Which I thought was
VHS.
Well, no, it was DVD, but they had all of it, and I thought it was hilarious. They had the combo. So, anyways, they're looking at the games, and they notice a game called Jumanji.
What?
No, I'm just kidding. I just wrote that out to be a funny.
Yeah, I heard of it.
So,
Just heard drums coming from it. It was really weird.
yeah. So they have dinner, and after dinner, Mark goes outside to light a fire, but he can overhear Judy arguing with somebody from her house, right? She's screaming and crying, but Mark can't make out anything that she's saying. He goes back inside and explains, hey, maybe it's not the most relaxing night for a bonfire.
Yeah.
You know, they decide to play the Golden Girls trivia game while binge watching Golden Girls, and everyone is awful at the trivia.
Look, yes. I don't even think I know any of the character names.
Blanche, Dorothy,
I would not win.
Estelle.
Okay.
I got 3. There's 4, right? I got 3 of the 4.
I know Betty White's in it.
I don't
and
know.
B. Arthur.
Yeah, I don't know.
Everyone else, I have no idea.
So you would all agree we would all be.
Oh, terrible.
We would be
I
terrible
don't know
at
if I'd get
But
a point.
we'd be binging trying to learn.
I kind of doubt one of the questions is who is the actress that plays one of the characters. I feel like it's be a little more advanced than
You
that.
might get it.
I don't think I
So, anyways, I'm thinking. So Liz goes in the other room to change, and before she starts, she notices somebody outside of her window. It's Kyle. Liz screams and tells Mark, who rushes out there pissed.
Well, yeah.
Right? Yelling at him like, what if my daughter was in there? What the fuck are you doing? You know, and he's furious. And Kyle responds, hey, like, I wasn't peeping. I was cutting through the yard from Judy's house, because you got to think he lives between Mark and Judy.
Okay.
They're on each side of him,
You're
right?
like, no, it's cool, man. I'm the guy who brought you the stairs. I'm like, no, get the fuck out of here. Like,
Don't you remember the stairs?
like, you stoked on
It's
me.
your stairs.
So, no, but he explains, hey, I was just cutting through
Just
from...
riding that wave.
He goes, I was just cutting through from Judy's house. It was me arguing with her. And then Kyle explains that him and Judy were previously married, and they still have a very unusual relationship.
So they know he was listening in. If he has to explain that it was me and Judy arguing.
Well, maybe he might have just been like, I'm sorry, I'm coming back from an argument with
Okay.
Judy. And since he heard the argument, it's a little more believable.
Okay.
Like so the way I'm picturing is like, Mark isn't very convinced, but he's like, he cools out. Like he's
Okay.
just kind of like, just stay away.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Like, yeah, let's
that's
just finish this trip. This is weird. Just leave us alone.
well, he's just kind of like, all right, man, I'm not going to kick your ass because you at least have a story, but I don't want to see you over here again.
right.
You know?
Yeah. Cut
So-
around the front way.
Yeah. So Mark and Liz put Annie to bed, and then they they discuss it all. Kyle seems creepy now. Judy seems crazy. Why would they divorce and live so close to each other? Why didn't Kyle or Judy mention their marriage? Why didn't Kyle mention he had a kid? They both agree the neighbors are ruining their vacation, but like at this point, it's still like it's just the neighbors, and it's not scary yet. It's just kind of like weird.
I feel like they become like invested for some reason. It's like, I just want to be on vacation and be left alone. But
Well,
for some reason now I care about this marriage.
But no, I think it's more that they're just like, please get these people the hell out of here.
Yeah.
But it's still like it's not scary enough that their conversation still gets to like, hey, we probably still shouldn't leave a bad Airbnb review because it's not the owner's fault.
Right.
Like they're still in that mode.
It's not like fight or flight yet. It's just cringe.
Well,
From
yeah.
the moment they show up there, it's just like an awkwardness between Kyle, between Judy, and like all of their interactions is maybe like forcibly, like overly nice, like fake nice, you know?
Yeah.
And it gives them like this off-putting sense, and then you get this vibe that Judy's crazy too, and then
They're both your neighbors are terrible.
and
Yeah.
that's on either side of you, and you're like, well, as long as we keep to ourselves, they still, hopefully they'll stay away or give us
Yeah.
some space here.
Let us just swim in the water. We can sit and have drinks while our kid plays in the water.
You
And
got
everything
Kyle
is
on
good.
one side, Judy on the other, goose froth on the other, or whatever the hell
Yeah.
you called it.
Yeah.
Like, this is awful.
This isn't
Yeah.
an ideal
You're surrounded.
vacation. We shouldn't have tried to save a little money and go with this one.
I
We should have went
Could have just bought a rocking
the
chair.
resort.
I got to say thanks to Gower on Twitch, who says, how on earth do I know all the Golden Girls' names? He's wildly impressed. I don't know either. but I only got 3 out of 4. But I think I did nail them. They're all correct.
Nailed all the Golden Girls.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna fact check you, so I'm just gonna take it.
yeah. So, anyways, like it's all creepy. They go to bed for the night. The next morning, they all wake up and eat breakfast. Annie says, "I want to stay here forever," and they're like, "Well, you can't," And she goes, "Well, Sophie says I can."
Yep,
And-
pack your bags.
Yeah.
Wow.
So the parents think it's sweet that she's getting along with the other kid. Like, sorry, baby, we're leaving in a couple of days. We're glad you're getting along with her, but, whatever.
These are pretty understanding parents. Like, I'm good. Nope.
But I got to say, I'm not a big horror movie fan. Am I setting the creepy vibe properly?
A little
Like,
bit.
are we getting there?
Yeah, you're dropping the breadcrumbs. You
yeah.
got it. Yeah.
Another thing that you could, a little bit scene that you could do to implement that Judy's crazy. Like, while I was at that bonfire, we were having a few beers and drinks and stuff like that. She was like, the lady was making mixed drinks. I was just drinking beer that I had brought with me. She says something to the effect of, there's like this decorative art face outside, like a sun face, like you might see in like, Better Homes and Garden, backyard or whatever. So they had this face up for decoration, and she says something like, one time I came out here and I threw a pot of boiling water on it because it was mocking me.
I remember you telling me that story.
That was like, the more that I thought about it, the more weirded out I got by it. Because like this lady, either, she likes to party. She probably got like wine wasted and, she's like getting, letting her hair down and getting comfortable and telling me this weird thing that she did when she was like all by herself. So picture, a neighbor or like riding your bike going by and this lady's just out there yelling at this decorative face out in your yard, throwing water at it.
All right.
Well, it is funny to think that this woman is just drunk, just arguing with a statue on her property and throwing boiling water on it.
You guys reminded me one time with a friend. I believe we saw some woman outside watering her lawn in the rain. That was probably one of the weirder things that I've seen.
So that's Judy.
All right.
So that's Judy. So anyways, while they're eating breakfast, Sophie, the little girl from Judy's granddaughter, comes to the door asking if Annie wants to run around the corn maze with her. I'm thinking the corn maze is like right across the street, and it's something that your 10-year-old, you're like, yeah, sure, go for it.
Yeah, you
But
just
it's like-
look across the street like that corn maze, and it's all
big.
dark and bats are flying around everywhere.
Yeah, basically. So the parents, they want Annie to play with kids, and as long as they can keep an eye on Mark and Judy, they really have no problem with it. So they're just kind of like, all right, hell yeah, quiet morning to ourselves. Go run around the corn maze.
Yeah, go get lost. Knock
Yeah,
yourself out.
we're gonna hang out on the lake. So the girls leave, and Mark and Liz are able to sit by the water, have a drink, read their books, and finally relax. They see Kyle and Judy outside in their yards, but they aren't even looking their way or waving. Neither of them will look in their face. So it's like they're both ashamed. Kyle for the window stuff, and Judy for assuming that they heard the fight. And they're just like, well, hey, we didn't really want to talk to them anyway, so this is perfect.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah. Just leave us
Yeah.
alone. We're good.
Yeah. So Mark and Liz, they're sitting by the lake. They've
They're
both.
trying to make the best of their situation.
Oh no, they're just like, this is perfect. The kid's playing with another kid. They're running around a corn maze. How awesome!
Finally settling in on
Yeah, I got to chill and read my book.
Yeah, these idiots are leaving us alone.
Yeah, so I'm thinking that they both dozed off in their chairs, by the lake. And one of them, it's maybe like a dream montage of just creepiness of what's already happened throughout the movie. Just the like, I want to stay here forever. Sophie says I can. Like, don't go in the house, And then they awake by another of Judy's screams, screaming, don't go in the house. And that wakes both of them. And they jump up to see her running towards Sophie, who's standing near their Airbnb. And Judy grabs her arm, starts rushing away like before. And Mark asks, where's Annie? And Sophie yells, inside. So Judy doesn't look at them once and just is in tears again and shuffles this girl off.
Let me stop real quick. I like that, that's how you wake up from the dream, because there's been times where, like, I'll hear a noise, like, subconsciously while I'm asleep.
Yeah,
in the
you start
dream, and
dreaming
then
about it.
You wake up, and you recognize and you hear what that is, like,
Yeah.
And that would be really creepy. Like, don't go in the house.
And then she's really yelling, don't go
Right.
in the house again. And you
Yeah,
look
so-
up, the girl's just standing by the door waiting, and, like, you're like, what?
So far, I'm feeling like there's something evil in this Airbnb. And Judy is
Well,
like, she sucks, but she's probably right.
Well, this is the ScareBNB.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
So
ScareBNB.
you got to understand, it's the ScareBNB. And I challenge you to come up with a better name.
Okay, R.L. Stein.
I mean,
Listener-
it would fit right in. My
listener-
son on the shelf, I'd be like, yeah, that tracks.
Listener beware, you're in for a scare. So Mark and Liz, they kind of roll their eyes at each other because they're like, okay, Judy is crazy. And then they go inside to check on Annie. They walk room to room, but they don't see her anywhere. They notice that her shoes that she was wearing are inside the house by the door, so she must have come home. They double check the house. They just don't see her anywhere. So the house is empty, right?
Okay.
So they step outside. They're looking around, calling out for her. No answer. They walk down by the water, and they're discussing whether it's worth checking the corn maze or not because her shoes were home, and Sophie said she was inside the house. So while discussing this, they see a young girl in the upstairs window of their Airbnb.
They're ScareBNB.
The ScareBNB, the
Yeah,
Nightmare B&B. She's similar age to Annie with similar features, but it's clearly a different person.
Okay.
They both rush into the house to check, hoping that it is Annie. They run room to room, but once again, the place is completely empty.
Spooky.
Very spooky, right?
Yeah, that's spooky.
Spooky. So they go back outside yelling for Annie. Liz decides she's going to go check the corn maze, while Mark angrily decides to go see what Kyle is doing and confront him about not telling them things. So Kyle's outside doing yard work, and he gets real defensive when Mark confronts him.
God, don't you even remember the stairs?
Oh yeah. So he's like, I'd forgotten. So he, he's like, why didn't you tell me you were married? Why didn't you didn't even tell me you had a kid? What the hell? And he's like, I don't like to talk about my divorce. I don't like to talk about my kids either. I haven't seen Annie.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, he's kind of right.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to talk about any
Yeah,
of
it's
that.
none of his business.
Your
Like,
daughter,
God,
yeah.
Mark.
Right.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
know you.
Yeah. So Mark tells him, well, we saw a girl in the window, and Kyle kind of perks up, and he starts asking what she looked like. Mark asks if he knows, like, do you know who she is? And Kyle just kind of looks down like, no. And Mark goes to leave, and then Kyle stops him to ask, did she look happy? Was she smiling?
Ooh.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah,
So
getting creepy.
so Mark is beyond creeped out
Yeah. Well,
at this point,
clearly.
right? Any thoughts?
Oh man, I don't know.
getting creepy.
Yeah, it's like I almost feel like we should have a campfire.
I told you this was the Spooktacular.
Yeah, this is a spooktacular.
It's good, like American Horror Story style
So
setup.
Gower's got a decent suggestion. I bet she has a doll room or a clown room or something along those lines.
Oh. Terrible.
Yeah, it's got to be like a bunch of creepy little.
That's what, like the
Yeah,
room she's
like
staying in the Airbnb.
faces
It looked
staring back
cute in
at
the
you.
ad, but it's terrifying.
Right.
It's
You know,
like, yeah, God, dude, just a room full of horrifying
Or
dolls.
just cuckoo
Yeah.
clocks.
Sleep
something.
tight.
Dominic on YouTube says, "Keep the breadcrumbs coming. We're your hungry little ducks." Well, I'm gonna feed him.
Yeah,
I hope I like it. I hope he's into it.
I know. I hope we got more.
So Mark, he's done talking to Kyle. He's walking off, and he walks to the road, and he sees Liz coming out of the corn maze alone. She couldn't find Annie. Mark gets angry and starts arguing with Liz that you were only in there 5 minutes. You must not have looked very well.
Yeah. What is she
You know?
now, little orphan Annie?
Yeah, exactly. So now they're getting into it, right? So he heads into the corn maze. He's gonna look, right? So Liz heads over to Judy's house to see if she can find out any more info from her or Sophie. She's not really getting anywhere at first. Like Judy just keeps being like, "Hey, if she said she went in the house, then she's in the house." Like that's just all she'll say.
Yeah.
So finally, Liz asks Sophie, "Why aren't you allowed in the house?"
Mm-hmm.
And Sophie responds, "That's how Mommy went crazy."
Okay.
Ooh.
Right?
So there's a presence in this house. Or,
Well-
well, maybe.
So Judy tearfully tells Liz to leave, and Liz goes back to the Airbnb and calls 911 on the
Yeah.
landline. Right at this point,
Okay.
it's
yeah.
time to.
Kids missing.
Yeah, kid's missing. Yeah, because I was gonna
Yeah.
say if kid wasn't missing, I'd just pack your bags. We're out.
Kids
Like,
missing, and everybody around here is crazy.
Yeah.
Like
exactly.
we're calling the police. We're gonna get some professionals involved, right?
Yep.
So Mark is searching the corn maze, and as he passes the entrance again, he can see a sheriff's vehicle in front of his rental. He starts walking over, but he waits. There's a vehicle coming, so he's got to wait for it to pass before he can cross. But he notices the vehicle is moving very slowly, and the driver is staring at the Airbnb,
Okay.
right? The driver notices Mark, and he stops to ask what is happening. Mark downplays it, and he's just like, my kid ran off somewhere. Wife's worried, The driver responds, "Don't waste your time with the police."
What kind of car?
What do you think?
A meat delivery truck.
Oh, I don't think the guy's on the clock,
Yeah.
but maybe.
I was gonna say a station wagon.
No, it's got some kind of like refrigerated truck, but he's like
Ooh.
like in a real dirty uniform.
Excuse me, I got to get these sides of beef to the warehouse.
Yeah.
All right.
So okay, the guy in the meat truck.
Yeah, won't do you no good.
Yeah, he says, "Hey, don't waste your time with the police. They know what's going on, but they won't stop it. The owner knows. The neighbors know too." The driver takes a big swig of liquor. So this guy's just getting hammered driving around these roads, like with this knowledge.
Gower says it's got free candy on the side of it.
Yeah. And that would be like, "Sir, could you
Too
pop open
cliche.
the back of the van, please, real quick? My daughter's missing."
Yeah. Do you have any puppies in there by chance?
Yeah. So Mark says, "What's going on?" And the driver responds, "I don't know if anyone knows exactly what's going on, but I can guess that you have a young daughter and she's in that house."
Okay.
Right?
So there's a history here.
Well,
No.
it's clearly something.
Yeah.
People know things, right?
Yep.
So the sheriff and Liz, they step out of the house, and the driver starts driving away because he sees them coming out. He sees the cop coming out of the house.
Command A says the truck says farm fresh eggs on it.
You just see this robot like, son of a bitch.
You bastard!
As many eggs as you want.
It just goes and delivers to all the stands.
Oh, come on.
Yeah. So I'm thinking, as soon as Liz and the cops are coming out of the house, the meat truck driver sees them and it just kind of like puts it in gear and starts moving, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mark yells, "Wait," but he keeps going, right? So what are you guys' thoughts here at this point?
Well, this is one of those ones where it's a little hard because like, this one you're dropping the breadcrumbs, so
Yeah.
there's no way we can really kind of alter the story without like messing up your breadcrumbs. So we got to go with that. But like, yeah.
Well, where do you think the breadcrumbs are leading? Is kind of what I'm asking. At this point of the movie, you're guessing.
We're making predictions.
You're halfway through. You're like, what's going on here? And you're trying to put it together.
Yeah,
So what makes sense right now?
I know, well, basically, I'm coming from like the normal person thinks, well, if I'm in that scary movie, what would I do? And it's just like, if I'm Mark, like as soon as I get there and meet Kyle, I'm like, fuck off, dude. Like I'm out. Like,
So you said the girl that they saw in the window.
They've never seen her before,
But
Yeah.
it's not Sophie, but it's like clearly a different girl.
but around the same age as those
Yeah.
girls.
I'm
But
picturing
what
like
if
the girl
like
in the ring.
that's like the mirror image? So it's like just different enough, but like so clearly a different person, but kind of like a doppelganger.
Bizarro Annie.
Yeah.
But then where's Annie?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So like you're still trying to wrap your brain around it.
What's swallowed up? In
And
the
I
cornfield.
feel like the pacing was proper with like you said, it's getting creepy, but you're still in that like, hey, we're not gonna let this ruin our vacation. And then now once it starts getting real creepy,
getting
once
dark
the kid's
out.
missing, but now you can't leave, the kid's missing.
Yeah.
So it's like I feel like no Wi-Fi, all that kind of stuff. I feel like we got it. The conditions are prime for you not to be sitting there being like, because when I watch most horror movies, I'm like, you idiot, get in your car and drive away, or whatever.
No,
I
you
do
can't.
feel like it'd be funny if he's
You're
catching a
stuck
lot
there.
of flack from the wife. Like, yeah, we just had to get the one with the really remote. Like, no service here.
I wanted to stay on the other lake,
Yeah.
and you went with this one.
Smooth move, Mark. Brain made of goose froth. Idiot.
So Gower makes a good point. If Annie is missing, how has Kyle not gotten his ass beat? If this is anything like Scooby-Doo, it's always the first person the gang meets,
Yeah.
right? I will say, without giving much away, you could be onto something. But is it Kyle? I don't know.
Is it
You have to
Kyle?
think
Is it
back.
Judy? Is there an evil
What
presence?
happened?
Is it the little girl?
The corn.
At this point, the meat truck driver drives off. The sheriff and Liz, they're coming out of the house.
Excuse me, eggs guy.
Oh, yes. Sorry, the farm fresh eggs guy.
Right, thank you.
And Mark runs to the sheriff and Liz, and they catch him up. And the sheriff says, "Don't worry, sir. Kids run off and lose track of time around here all the time. Lots of fun things to do.
That would make me feel
We
better.
get a lot of kids disappearing.
Yeah, a lot of kids disappear around here, man. It's fine.
Put
It's
your
normal.
mind at ease.
It's cool.
Put your mind
Don't
at
worry about
ease.
it.
A lot of kids go missing around here."
Yeah, there's
Just
nothing
another
special.
day.
There's nothing special about this disappearance.
ScareBNB.
So,
I gotta go get some eggs.
they say, hey, kids run off. They lose track of time. There's lots of fun things to do. Rest assured, I've put out a notice that we're looking for her, and I'm going to speak with the neighbors. Everyone around here are good, wholesome people who would jump in a fire to help a stranger.
Yeah, look, your kids aren't special. They disappear all the time. I need to go get those eggs.
Wow.
Which is another Tuesday, Gower says.
It all comes back to the end.
So he says, my deputies and myself will be patrolling all day and night until she's found. If she's still gone by nightfall, the street lights will lead her back to the main road. Please try to rest easy. This happens a lot.
I feel like the cops are like an evil cult at this point.
So, are the parents satisfied with that cop response? Or are they like, are you even, what are you doing?
So I put, Liz seems relieved by the sheriff's words, but Mark isn't so sure. Was the man in the car crazy? The egg truck. Was he crazy, or does he know something? The sheriff heads down to the water where Judy...
I think they would downplay it like, oh, yeah, that maze is tricky. They would just kind of say is like, she's probably still in there somewhere.
Would you say your
playing
kid's
hide
book
and
smart?
seek or whatever.
or do you think they're like realistically smart? They could find their way out. There's a lot riding on this.
Right.
So at this point, the sheriff's done talking to them. He heads down to the water where Judy and Kyle are now seated on a bench together. Mark and Liz watch them through the window as Mark tells her about what the man in the truck said. Neither of them know what to think, but Liz stays hopeful. Mark decides to go search the corn maze again. I'm thinking he is just obsessively searching this corn maze. You know
Plus,
what I mean?
cool.
What do you? Well, yeah, it's like, well, I thought this was the way, but I still don't know.
Yeah, took the hayride over there.
Yeah, bobbing for apples in the yard. Have you found my daughter yet?
It was on the way.
Yeah.
Well, corn maze itself is set up for like a creepy kind of vibe to it.
I went in one recently, and all
you
I could think was if night time came and I was still in here, this would really suck.
Very limited vision. The corn is very tall. And like around every turn, you don't know if it's going to lead to the right path or if it's going to be a dead end or if there's going to be a scarecrow standing there or, jump scare kind of thing. Plus, just anything could be lurking out there, whatever. So that would be very creepy scene.
Yeah.
I feel like if you really were trapped in a cornfield, you just kind of go into like a cross block position and just sprint one direction. I feel like that's the best way. It's I'm out. I'm just gonna run through all the corn. Exactly.
Just brute force.
Yeah. It was this cornfield can't go on forever.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna run that direction.
So Mark goes to decide to search the corn maze again. He's just pacing the same paths over and over again, rethinking all the foreshadowing he has heard all movie.
All movie.
Yeah. Sophie says, I can stay forever. Don't go in the house. She's inside the house. Don't waste your time with the police. Everyone knows. The neighbors. The owner.
So
the owner?
I'm assuming he's shouting out, looking for his daughter.
Yes.
Is he hearing any kind of response?
No, nothing.
When he's in the corn maze, is it super isolated or you can still hear the road traffic?
I'm thinking it must be a pretty big corn maze.
Yeah.
Marco.
Yeah. So Mark has a revelation. The owner. He heads back to the rental. When he gets back in, it's getting dark. Liz is asleep with a bottle of wine next to her. The Golden Girls theme plays in the background.
So ominous.
So Mark begins...
Wait, what is the Golden Girls theme? Was it
Thank you for being a friend.
All right.
Travel down the road and back. I know the theme too. Who I was impressed by that? Your heart is true.
I know that first note.
This episode of We Won't Finish This Podcast is sponsored by Pizza Lobo. If you're in the Chicago area, make sure to stop by Pizza Lobo, now with 2 locations, Andersonville and Logan Square, open every day, rain or shine. Order at pizzalobo.com, caviar or DoorDash.
And thank you for being a friend.
You're cut off.
Your heart is true. Okay. So we don't want to get copyright strike. If we sing it well enough, YouTube's algorithm will catch us.
Oh, boy. Well,
So,
I don't think we have to worry about that.
I think we're fine. So Mark begins rummaging through the drawers, and he finally finds a piece of mail or something that has the owner's address. He doesn't want to go without Liz, so he just pours a drink and sits on the back deck.
Just stewing about it?
Sit down and...
Well, the police are already on. You know what I mean? He's like, I don't need to rush to the Airbnb owner's house because my daughter went missing. Let's wait for Liz, and then we're going to talk about this.
I just see this guy angrily rocking back in a rocking chair. Just a drink.
Well, no, he's sitting on the back deck where he can see that Kyle and Judy are still sitting on the bench.
I feel okay. How about there was a bottle of like really old, like whiskey or scotch or something, in the Airbnb like there, and he decided to crack it open at that point.
Yeah.
It was
Who cares?
a bottle
Yeah.
that was already planted at the Airbnb.
Is it a spooky bottle?
He had to dust off the bottle probably. You know,
Okay,
it's
it's
an
a
old
spooky
Had
bottle.
cobwebs
it's
on
been
it.
sitting for a while.
All right.
But yeah, no, I like that because it's just kind of like, hey, who cares? Vacation's over.
Yeah.
I'm just going to have a
Right.
drink, wait for Liz to wake up.
My kid's
and
dead.
see if she wants to go harass this Airbnb owner about something probably unrelated to her. So he sits on the back deck, but he can see Kyle and Judy still sitting on the bench by the water, having drinks, smiling, laughing.
Yeah. Are they holding
Right?
hands?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Is that, so they were previously married. They have an
Uh-huh.
unusual relationship. They're now.
Unusual.
Yeah, they've
You know-
just gained power by the sacrifice of their daughter.
Last night they were screaming at each other. Tonight they're schmoozing it up. That's
Yeah.
coming back. They're schmoozing it up by the lake.
Yeah.
You know.
Nothing brings us together like a missing child.
Well, that's what it's so frustrating about this, right? So Mark puts down his drink and he marches down there and he confronts them angrily.
Smashes the bottle.
He confronts them angrily about how they must know what's going on. Judy gets up and leaves immediately, but Kyle stays and he invites Mark to sit with him.
Okay.
You guys ready for this conversation?
We
This
will
is
never be
the
ready.
peak spookiness.
Okay.
Any thoughts?
I mean, I just you're kind of setting the table pretty well. Like honestly,
Yeah.
I don't really have
So-
much of the way it tweaks.
I don't like horror movies, but I honestly I kind of am proud of this one.
Yeah, and so at this point, this guy just wanted a simple family vacation. Now he's separated from both his daughter and his wife.
Well, he could wake her up, but like think about it. Your daughter's missing and your wife has actually managed to fall asleep. Are you going to wake her up to be like, "Hey, wake up into this hell of your daughter missing"? Like,
right.
I think you just kind of sit around and
Let her
maybe
sleep
hope the
as well.
police showed up with her before she woke up,
Yeah.
so that you
I'm
don't have to.
miserable here, and you're going to be miserable
Right,
too.
I'll take the first watch.
That's kind of what I see. Is like I don't think I would wake my wife up.
course
I'd be
not.
like, okay, she's sleeping good.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
just let
You
it
know,
happen.
Let her sleep, and hopefully this girl shows back up.
I know. I'm just going to go pace on the porch for 7 hours.
basically.
Yeah.
I'm going to be out on the deck all night waiting. So that's kind of where my thoughts are on that. So he sits on the bench with Kyle. It's just Mark and Kyle out there, right? What do you got?
Yeah, so you're painting the picture well. I feel like Kyle maybe has a bunch of yard working tools and equipment. Maybe that's like what he does throughout like each encounter. He's always either got like, you know, like a rake in his hand or like some kind of yard working equipment.
Yeah.
And so
It's a busy body.
they sit down at the campfire and maybe he like lets it slip that he's actually living in the shed behind the house.
It's not his house at all. He's just.
Yeah,
Well,
if you
Judy
picture-
owns both houses.
Well, at that point, I would immediately kick in the door of that shed to make sure my daughter wasn't in there.
Judy
But
owns both houses.
Yeah, if you constantly see him with like yard work equipment, I feel like at the whole time he's got to be like,
He's
"Thank
not the
you for
owner, he just
being a
works for her."
friend."
yeah,
He's always singing the Golden Girls theme to himself.
Golden Girls is popular around this lake. They call it Golden Lake.
She's the one calling the shots. Judy's the like the head lady
Yeah.
here.
Here's what I've got for Mark sits down with Kyle on the bench,
Yeah.
right? Kyle tells him, "It's going to be all right, Mark. You'll see your daughter again. I saw mine today." Kyle shows Mark a picture on his phone. It's the same girl he saw earlier today in the window.
Mm-hmm.
The picture is of her smiling and waving from the same window. Kyle has a big grin on his face. He starts swiping through other pictures, and they're all from different windows of the house with clearly different weather conditions, so like they're different days.
Yeah.
And they're all of the same girl looking out a window. And he says, "Look, I even got a picture of Annie." Kyle shows a picture that has 3 different girls in it all smiling at each other, and one of them is Annie.
Okay. So it's Annie, Sophie, and then like mystery.
No, Sophie's not in the house.
Okay.
Judy's made very clear that Sophie does not go in the house.
Okay.
But Annie's in there.
And two
Kyle
other mystery
and
girls.
Judy's daughter is in there.
Yeah.
One of their daughters.
Yeah.
And some other girl, sounds
Okay.
like. So they can see them in the windows.
Okay.
Right?
That's spooky.
It's very spooky
So-
for our Halloween double feature spooktacular.
At that point, you're probably kicking in the door, like, let me get in there.
Well, no, they're in the house.
Look it up.
They're
Yeah,
renting
no.
the house.
Yeah.
They can walk in there and she's not in there.
Right. No, at this point, I'm hitting Kyle with like a stone cold stunner. Like he's
Explain this.
Yeah, he's starting to get like thrown into the bonfire. Be like,
So-
you're giving me some answers.
So you're right. So he says, they got the picture of these girls. One of them saying, Mark is shocked. He looks at the house, but nothing is going on in any of the windows. Mark asks to see the picture again. Kyle shows it to him and says, see, we all just want to see our kids happy, Mark.
Yeah. It's,
Pretty spooky, right?
Yeah, it's go time with
God,
that comment.
spooky, man.
Like,
Well,
there is a fight.
So Mark says, well, I'm thinking of fight. I avoided it in the writing. I'm not opposed to there being a fight right here. I could beat him within an inch of his life. And I think it would just come down to like, this isn't going to bring your daughter back.
No,
You know
but
what I mean?
just out
Like,
of sheer frustration,
we're in the same
creepiness.
situation.
Yeah.
This is what they've revealed is that he's the same victim. It's
Yeah.
not, that's the problem with him is that he's allowed it to happen.
Oh no, Mark and his wife are gonna have to move into a house in this lake now.
So
Neighboring these two.
Yeah, you have to
Mark
live with them
started
forever.
out as an Airbnb client before
ScareBNB.
him.
Well, we're getting there. I'll say so. Mark asks what is happening. Kyle then explains that he and Judy stayed here years ago with their two daughters back when they were still married. And on the second day, the youngest vanished. The oldest daughter knew that she hadn't left the house, but she was just gone. They searched all over, got the police involved. Nobody could help us. It wasn't until we were driving away to go home that my oldest daughter spotted our youngest in an upstairs window. We went back and still nothing. My oldest kind of went crazy with drugs and depression, and the years later, she never fully recovered. She had wild claims of her sister being in the house and that she could see her in the windows. Nobody believed her, but she was right. She's in a hospital now, and Judy is taking care of her daughter. Judy and I tried to buy the house, but the owner won't sell it. Our marriage fell apart, but we were both able to buy the neighboring houses over the next few years just to get glimpses when we could. After all this, our youngest is the only one in the family who seems happy. We bought the houses next door to get a glimpse of her any chance we could.
Yeah, they're sacrificing
Wow.
kids to see their daughter.
Well, but as a parent, you do want to see your kids playing with other kids. So if your kid was trapped in a house, obviously you don't want kids to go missing, but you also are kind of like, it wouldn't be the worst thing if she had another friend show up. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that's where I think everybody's
Man, that's pretty
crazy.
wild.
Yeah, and
Everybody's crazy around here is
I
kind
know.
of what I'm at.
and they
you
got to
know?
figure out like they're probably giant screw up is here when the first time she was like, "Don't go in the house," and I'd be like, "Why?"
Yeah. Should none of us go in the house?
Yeah.
Clarify.
Yeah, what's going on in that house?
Expound upon that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could you please elaborate?
No, I
Because
agree.
I'm currently living there.
I
for
agree, but like I said, I feel like I walked the line well where there was never any clear moment of like, all right, pack up the car and get the fuck out of here.
Yeah,
Maybe
yeah,
the peeping.
Right. This is
Maybe
the
the
hindsight
peeping
stuff.
the peeping scare with Kyle
Yeah.
would have been a like, all right, we're out of here. We're not sleeping here tonight. This weirdo's next door.
I feel you've
You know what
done
I mean?
well enough that I feel like I'm in the audience on this one. So I'm snapping into that like reaction mode to like what's going on here. Like, oh come on, like a scary movie. Like, why would you do that? Why would you make that decision?
I was trying to write it in a way that there wasn't any moments where there was a clear, why aren't they doing this?
Yeah.
And once you had those thoughts, it was kind of too late. Like your daughter's missing. You're not just going to pack up and go home.
Yeah.
You're in the middle of nowhere at some Airbnb. She's nearby probably.
Yep.
You know what I mean? You're going to hang out. You're going to talk to the local police. It's some sheriff. Like you trust him, hopefully, other than the crazy guy in the egg truck.
That
was spooky.
His eggs are fire
Yeah.
though.
So that's where I'm at. So it finally gets Mark asks, why would you let us stay here? And Kyle responds, we all want our kids to make friends. And Mark is yet again shocked. And I wrote that he leaves, but I'm not opposed to just a pummeling.
Yeah, it's
At this
got
point.
to, dude.
Yeah, one
absolute pummeling.
solid punch in the face, and
Because that's what I'm saying is it's just you realize like, okay, this guy isn't the problem, but come on,
Yeah,
man.
Right.
he's
You know?
very
Heads up.
punchable.
Yeah, he's very punchable in this situation.
he'll
I'll give
me
it to
a
you.
heads up.
Yeah.
That's all
Yeah.
I'm saying.
So yeah, I do think in this context he just gets savagely beaten.
Okay. Stone Cold Stunners.
Oh yeah.
Maybe Liz comes over. She wakes up from her wine stupor.
Yeah.
And
Hits him
just
with the
I feel
Luthez
like-
toss.
3Ds him off a picnic table.
I feel like the dad in this situation has like maybe like a history of like losing his temper and when he drinks or something, and maybe like he hasn't drank in a long time.
You're talking
until
Mark?
This, until the night of this.
Oh,
happening.
that's when he cracks the bottle.
Cracks that old
No,
bottle.
you're right. That adds another layer to it.
And
I like
now,
that.
all of a sudden, he punches that neighbor guy.
He's
now,
very agile.
And
now
it's
this
reflective. Maybe he stopped drinking because of like an assault charge or something.
This is,
And now it's like, fuck, I drank, and now I'm punching a guy within 30 minutes.
I feel
right.
mean.
Now
you know?
the cops are gonna come at him like he's the aggressor in this situation. Obviously.
Okay, yeah. So we don't want to talk to the cops anymore tonight, is
Yeah.
what you're saying.
He's very drunk and he's like very acrobatic. Hits him with a Frankensteiner,
I
like right
think
into the
he's
bonfire.
like he's been doing so great and like really turned his life around, and then they decide, like you're working so hard, like let's get out of town for a little bit. We'll go on vacation with the family, and he gets driven to crack that bottle again.
Yeah.
And then even
I mean, your
if
daughter's
even
missing.
if he
When
only
are you going to
has
crack a
one-
bottle other than when your kid goes missing?
Even
or
if he only
whatever,
has
you know?
one, now like, well, you drank again, and so like he
Yep.
punches the dude.
No
as-
holds
as,
barred.
As deserved as this beating would be, and then
This is
now-
6 years of sobriety in your fucking face.
Right now the tables have totally turned on
5 months of
on
chips.
this on what was his name?
Mark.
Which one,
Oh,
Mark?
Kyle.
Mark's the main. Kyle's the neighbor.
Okay, yeah, Mark.
Yeah. So Mark leaves, whether he's pummeled him or just left him whole.
Pummeled. Absolutely.
Okay, so
pummeled.
he leaves him pummeled, and when he nears the rental, he notices a car parked in the road. Well, I guess a truck with its lights off, and it's the Farm Fresh Eggs truck driver parked in the road in front of the Airbnb.
Need any eggs?
Mark approaches it, and the guy is just sleeping in there with a bottle of liquor on his lap.
Sure.
Mark wakes him up
The
to
same
ask,
kind of liquor.
maybe that's what triggered him.
Maybe it's like a local thing. Like
You can only get it up here. We all love it. Yeah. Farm fresh moonshine.
Kentucky bourbon.
So Mark sees him sleeping in there. He wakes him up to ask what he's doing and what does he know about his daughter. And the driver explains that he's just another parent, just like the rest. And except I can't afford to buy property nearby. These are multi-million-dollar homes.
Ooh.
I'm essentially priced out from seeing my daughter. So I drink and hang outside whenever I can.
Just sell eggs.
Yeah, basically that's a good way to pay for the gas.
Yeah.
For circling the Airbnb.
Just sets up a little shop right there.
So
Little stand.
and then he
Raking it in with this egg monopoly. he's
Yeah.
Got the
going on.
market cornered.
So he
All those signs are his.
he comes back.
Jane.
Yeah, we have to make sure to put him north of the grocery store. It
Got a
fires
chain of
everybody
egg
up.
Stands out in the country.
They require more protein when they're angry. They'll eat more eggs. It's a long game. So, the driver explains, I came back because I saw the police here earlier. There's usually more activity in the windows when a new one has joined them.
Oh,
So that's the other thing
he
is
knows about
you
it, too.
you might go months with like I haven't seen anything in these windows, nothing's going on. But if a new one, I guess, gets taken,
Yeah.
we'll say,
No,
then
no,
you
you
start
said that.
seeing like there's activity maybe for the next couple days, weeks, and that's why like Mark and Judy have reconciled and they're sitting on the bench taking pictures. They're excited. This guy's like, I came back tonight because I saw the cop car. I knew something just happened. I know I have a chance to see another glimpse. It's a very sad, scary tale.
Yeah. Now
But
talking
it's-
with this,
the house is the
Culprit.
the antagonist in this situation, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And nobody
House is
really
evil.
yet seems to know anything that's going on.
Yeah.
So it's like, what
don't
can you
know.
really do?
Yeah, I mean, with the egg guy, like you've heard the expression, you can't make an omelet without cracking a couple eggs, right?
No.
Okay, well, I think this guy needs to get his ass kicked. That's my point.
The driver.
Yes.
So Mark is on
Mark's on a roll.
He's on a wrecking spree right now.
Yeah. I mean, wouldn't you?
Okay.
Be?
So he just
DDT off the top rope,
he pulls him out of the
egg
car.
guy.
You're having it too, and he just beats the shit out of him on the side of the road, and that's that.
Just in a pile of eggshells.
So now his wife wakes up.
So he's
and
got his ass
he's-
kicked and
like
he's sticky.
Mark is the bad guy.
She does a leg drop from the second story window.
So we're settled. These characters are former wrestlers at this point.
They're all cruiserweight.
All right, fair enough.
Anyway, so at this point, Mark jumps in the car and he starts driving to the owner's address, Margaret,
Yeah.
Okay.
just by himself. It's not far at all, but it's in a very secluded area. and he gets to a long dirt driveway in the woods. As he gets his ways up the driveway, he sees that it's blocked by the sheriff's cruiser.
Okay.
The sheriff approaches him, and he says, "You all end up here sooner or later. You got here quick, though." So he gives him some credit.
Yeah.
And
You
Mark
figured it out.
Mark says, "I know you know what's happening. If you can't help me, then I demand answers from her." The sheriff explains that I completely understand. He was there when Margaret's sister went missing. That's the owner. Margaret's sister went missing in the house. It's a terrible thing, but sometimes something that can't be undone. The sheriff explains to Mark that Margaret is the only thing guaranteeing that the house stays standing. Little is known about how all this works, but it can only be assumed that if the house were ever to be torn down, that it wouldn't be good for those inside.
Like, look, I need to speak to Madge.
Yeah. He's demanding it.
How many people are trapped in this house?
Well,
Obviously,
obviously,
kids he got in there.
so I'm picturing it as Margaret is, it said, in her 60s, and this happened to her sister, and I'm thinking that it would have been possibly her younger sister.
Okay.
They moved into this place. I think we can explain it a little more, but
One of the
either
other
way,
Golden Girls.
yeah. So it wouldn't be good for those inside if the house got torn down.
Yeah.
So he's basically saying, hey, don't hurt Margaret. She's the only one that's keeping this place whole. You know what I mean? And your daughter's in there now, essentially.
Yeah. So Margaret's some kind of evil presence.
Well, or is she just yet another victim? You know what I mean?
She's evil.
So Mark kind of understands, and he starts walking towards Margaret's. It's a small rundown trailer in the woods. You got to understand, this lady owns a multi-million-dollar lakeshore, cabin.
Yeah. And she's living in a shack
She's
in the
living
woods.
in, squalor. I think that's the word. Is that a word?
Yeah, it is. No, that's you're right. I mean,
Thank
that's
you.
more just like I picture like rat feces and like trash everywhere.
It's bad.
Yeah.
Let's just say it's bad, right? So he knocks on the door, and an unkempt and decrepit woman answers the door. She's clearly the same woman from the Airbnb ad as the owner, but she appears much older and in poorer health than the business look she had in her picture.
Yeah.
She invites Mark in.
Catfished.
He's catfish to a ScareBNB.
Yeah. So Margaret is a sad old woman who grew up in that house, and her sister went missing one day, and there was no explanation. Margaret began seeing her in the windows from time to time, but nobody ever believed her. She spent her whole childhood in that house, but it would never take her. Can you imagine that kind of feeling?
Yeah,
of
she
like,
wanted the house to take her.
Yeah,
Okay.
she missed her sister, right? And when Margaret's parents died, she inherited the house, but she couldn't afford to keep it, the taxes and whatnot. Even if
Yeah.
they owned it, like, this is very expensive property, so like this is a big deal. And if she's a little mentally unwell, she's probably not making too much money either,
Yeah.
So she had a great responsibility to protect the house at all costs, but she could only pay the taxes if she rented it out.
Mm-hmm.
So then, voila, Airbnb comes into the picture.
ScareBNB.
Nightmare B&B. So this is, I'll be honest, this is pretty much the end of my notes, but I have some possible endings.
Okay.
These are both dark endings, I will say. One shows a shot of Mark and Liz looking at listings, just like at the beginning of the movie when they're looking at the Airbnbs. Similarly to when they were looking, at the beginning, getting excited by a good one, and then pointing out that you'd have a clear view of two sides of the windows. It's revealed that they're looking at homes for sale on the lake.
Yeah.
And then the camera pans out to reveal that they're living out of a terribly run-down van. They've sold everything. They're
Yeah.
trying to get into this, how do we get a place up there?
Yeah.
You know what I
Stole
mean?
the egg truck. There's shit everywhere.
Yeah, and then
To see the reflection of her daughter in the
just
window.
just to get a confirmation of like, yep, she's happy. Because maybe there's a bunch of little girls there. They're playing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I'm sure it gets boring.
Yeah.
Stuck in a house, you can only look out a window.
Just being sad every day of your life.
That's why Kyle was like, "What are you into? Princesses?" Because he knew what his daughter was into. He was like, Is she gonna be excited to talk to you?"
Yeah.
So I'm saying it's a spooky tale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
it
it.
is.
No, it's spooky. You
So-
said you had multiple though. Oh, go ahead.
Well, the other one was basically the same, but it says they're just chilling out on a boat watching the house through binoculars.
Oh, okay. So yeah, just
So
either way
that's-
they're there. Like, and I imagine this was like a pond.
She's gone.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I imagine this is like a small body of water. So it's like a very, very big boat in a small body of water with
Yeah.
binoculars looking
Yeah.
through these windows.
But that's why you got to think. You rent this Airbnb and like there's cars driving by looking at you. the neighbors are weird and they both have a weird connection to your place.
There goes another one.
There's a guy out on the water on a boat looking at you in binoculars. Maybe there's a footpath going around the lake and people that walk by are like staying a little too long looking at your property, maybe even taking pictures. And you're just kind of like, what's going on here? And it turns out that this is the story. You have this weird house where people just disappear, but for some reason you can see them from the outside in the window sometimes. Yeah, very spooky. And like I said in the last episode, like, there's no real monster to show.
Yeah.
I feel like it spoils it. But this is like, it's just this, you're powerless.
Well, we never get into, like, what is causing this house to do this. Like, what are they going into? Like,
it's just supernatural force.
Universe.
Yeah.
Like, are they, like, trapped within
it's unexplained from the start.
The reflection of the windows.
This girl who grew up in there was like, I don't even know what's happening, but I just got to make sure nobody tears this house down.
Yeah.
Oh, and I didn't even add. So the police. I wonder, why is the police in on it, right? I was thinking, I was toggling between, it could either be like maybe the owner's brother. He became the sheriff, or maybe it was a love interest. He was like falling, he lived on the lake. There's some girl. He's like a teenage love kind of thing is budding. And then this terrible tragedy, her sister's missing. It's a tragedy. She goes insane. And he's just kind of like, he wants to know what happened. So he starts investigating. And then it takes a while for him to realize.
I've always kind of cared for Madge.
Yeah.
I mean, he was like the first detective on the case. And
maybe he's a deputy at the time or something.
Knowing so much,
and she was the older
it
sister.
And, falls in love with her and sticks around.
That's why he was in the driveway, to kind of be the barrier. Like, hey, I know you're gonna go in there and murder this Airbnb owner, but
and nobody blames you.
Don't hurt her, because she's the only one who's making sure this place doesn't get demolished. And I was even thinking there could be a connection where they could be getting like excited about the one they rented, because they're like, yeah, there's a really expensive lake and we're actually on the more expensive side, but it turns out those prices are just driven up by all these parents that are like trying to fight for these nearby properties. So it's just a weird
it's like hotel hell. Like, once you check in, you can't leave because your kid's gone, but that's the only chance you get to see him, so you try to move in close to the house that caused that to happen.
They sold everything they had to move into a van,
the community
just to have the down payment to try to get in on the lake so that they could get these glimpses. Why don't they just
go in the house?
Well, that's the thing, is you almost don't want to be in the house.
Yeah.
I mean,
there's no benefit. You can't see anything in there. You don't like hear them or anything.
Right. Yeah. Because if you're trying to catch the glimpse of your presumably dead ghost daughter.
So it only happens to
Mark and Judy were doing it right, where they were just sitting on the bench, snapping photos, having drinks. There she is. She looks happy. Let's get another photo. Cool. Get a video. Hey, show her this, birthday cake.
Yeah, that's
whatever it is. It's very creepy.
It's like,
But that's what I'm saying is
Stepford wives.
But you can do it in a way where it humanizes the crazy to the point where your protagonists join the crazy.
Yeah.
All they wanted, there's no answer except for, let's just try to figure out a way to get close to this place.
Yeah, and you're just spiraling into depression.
So we can see too.
Yeah.
And that's where Sophie's mom, she was having problems and she's in the hospital. She's like the older sister or something that this happened to her too. And now you just can't come back from it. And it's just like people go crazy or they find a way to get close.
I feel like from the moment that they arrive at the Airbnb, they have to notice like crazy amount of foot traffic of people walking by, like
people, cameras out.
Yeah.
Like everybody's looking at you and you're like, what's
famous?
Yeah. I agree with you.
Just like their neighborhood people, they're like walking their dogs or whatever, but they're just like really making a point to like stay in that house and like scope it out.
Yeah. Everybody just stays like a little long.
For a chance to see their relative that's gone missing.
Yeah. What do you guys think? I'm not a horror fan, but I feel like this is one that's...
Yeah, I'd stream it.
It's pretty sweet. Like... Yeah. I might check it out. I'd watch the trailer on Netflix.
It's just like, well, this is our life now.
Well, it's just what else you got. You know what I mean? Like, here we are.
Yeah, it's like, I'm not a horror guy either. Like, it's a decent little ghost story, I think, there. So yeah.
Yeah, I don't really know what it is. Like, that's the thing. I never...
Story. Yeah,
there's no answer.
That. Yeah.
And we won't finish it. We won't explain it.
No,
we've
absolutely not.
We've already explained that.
You guys can finish it in your head.
Yeah, or join the Discord. We actually have a Finish This Podcast channel where you can add your thoughts after the fact, even if you're just a listener and not here for the live stream.
Yeah, you can help us not finish it.
For those who are here for the live stream, thanks for joining us. I appreciate it. And our Halloween Double Feature Spooktacular.
Spooktacular.
Brought to you by Pizza Lobo, pizzalobo.com. And check us out on social media. We're on most platforms, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. You can find all those links at linktree/WWFTpod. Anybody have any other thoughts, or are we done here?
I think we didn't finish it.
Liked it. Grindhouse.
Yeah, Grindhouse.
Yeah. This is our grindhouse, essentially. And then you guys can decide in the comments who's Robert Rodriguez and who wrote a movie about a movie that nobody, or a TV show nobody's ever heard about.
All right.
You know what I'm talking about?
No.
The car thing?
Oh, wait, yes. No.
What was the movie called? Death Wish? Or
Yeah, and Kurt Russell is in it.
Death Proof.
Death
Death
Proof.
Proof.
Yep,
It was
that's
Death
what
Proof, but it was all about some Vanishing Point TV show that
Yeah,
I had
don't
never
remember.
heard of.
I actually don't even think I've seen
It was all dialogue, and half the movie was just talking about that show. So I will say Robert Rodriguez, he stole Grindhouse.
it. Yeah, probably.
I would say it's a better movie.
Terror Planet? Was that the other one?
You guys can attack me in the comments for it. I said it. Planet Terror.
That's what it was. All
Yeah.
right, all right, all right.
But okay, so we're done here.
Yeah, I think
All right.
we're done.
Who you?
Yep. Woo.